Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing a book review on The Great Divide by Cristina Henríquez. This is a historical fiction book that takes place in Panama during the building of the Panama Canal. You are following a couple of different characters over the course of this story. There is Ada, who is about 16 years old. She has come to Panama from Barbados because she wants a job. She knows that there is work to be had in Panama during this time, and her sister is sick and she wants to be able to earn money to send back home so that way her sister can get the medical help that she needs. Then there's Omar, who is a local, and he decides that he is also going to get a job building the canal. However, his father is a local fisherman and absolutely hates that this canal is being built, and so he is so upset with his son for basically getting this job and not becoming a fisherman like him that the two of them completely stop speaking to each other. And then there is John Oswald and his wife Marion, who are from the United States, and they end up moving to Panama because John is doing research about malaria, and he believes that mosquitoes are a key part of why malaria is spreading so significantly, and he believes that the research that he can do in Panama can make a significant difference in terms of stopping this disease from killing people. But while they're in Panama, Marion ends up falling ill, and John actually ends up hiring Ada as a caretaker for his wife. So these are the main perspectives that you follow over the course of this book. There are a couple of other perspectives that come into play while the story is being told, but overall this is the story of just kind of these beginning stages of when the Panama Canal was being built, what was happening in this country, what it was like for various people in this country, as well as what it was like for people who are coming over to Panama. I feel like one of the things that Cristina Henríquez was trying to do was give a voice and tell the story of people who you don't often hear from when it comes to big historic events like this. You're hearing from locals, fishermen, people who immigrated over and are workers, things along those lines, which I think that Cristina Henríquez is really good at. One of her previous books, The Book of Unknown Americans, was one of my favorite books in the year that I read it. I still highly recommend that book to a lot of people. And she kind of does something similar where she is telling the story of these people who have immigrated to the United States from various Central and South American countries. And I feel like she's doing a pretty similar thing here. One of the really nice things about this book is the fact that you can tell that Cristina Henríquez has done her research. There's a lot of really interesting historical facts and information that's provided within this book about the building of the Panama Canal. Some of it does feel like a slight divergence from the main storyline, so to speak, but I found it to just be interesting because I'm a nerd who enjoys history. Now, one of the things that I feel like I talk about in almost every book review at this point, because everyone seems to have multiple perspective books these days, is the effectiveness of all of those perspectives. One of the things I enjoyed about this book is that those three perspectives are all really well thought out. I feel like all of those characters are interesting, and all of those characters also kind of intertwine with each other in various ways over the course of the book, which I thought was really well done. There's a couple of other chapters in this book that I feel like are not quite as necessary for the main plot and point of the book. There's this one person who buys fish from Omar's father, and you find out that his wife's family home is going to get destroyed by the government in Panama because they're going to be destroying that area in order to expand the canal and things like that, and they end up protesting that, and that becomes part of the story that you're reading about. But that part of the book feels so disconnected from everything else in terms of the main plots and the main storyline that it feels like a completely different thing that could have been its own book in and of itself. It feels like a piece of research that Cristina Henríquez did where she found out about the people who were protesting the building of the Panama Canal and wanted to provide their voice into the story as well. And it just didn't feel quite as integrated. Then there is a little bit of history about Ada and her family back in Barbados, which I don't know if that storyline really added a whole lot to the rest of the book. I feel like you could have just completely chopped out those chapters and you would have been fine. It's nice to get a little bit of backstory in terms of like what's going on with Ada's sister and like the fact that she needs medical help and like what's going on with her disease. But there's like a lot of backstory to their family that I was very surprised by over the course of this book, because I was just like, this feels like, again, a completely different book or a completely different story being a part of this book and story as well. I do think that like Cristina Henríquez is a really great writer, and she creates these really interesting and unique characters that you want to follow. And so for me personally, like while I was reading the book, I was like really captivated by what was going on. I wanted to keep following them. It's funny because I've seen people say that this is like a book without a plot, which reflecting back on it, I suppose is somewhat true. But in my opinion, it didn't like feel like it. Maybe it's because I read a lot of slower literary fiction books, but this one felt like it had a plot to me. But I also think the fact that there are really strong and interesting characters in this book just kind of propelled the story forward. And I didn't really have any difficulty connecting with the book because I connected with those characters. But if you're someone who really enjoys like plot driven novels, then this is probably one that may not work for you quite as well. I do feel like the ending was rushed a little bit, and it feels like there's a lot of good character growth that happens over the course of this book, and then like everything wraps up really nicely and neatly. And I was just like, this feels a little bit too neat to me. But overall, I did really enjoy my experience with this book. I didn't love it quite as much as The Book of Unknown Americans, but I do think that if you're someone who enjoys historical fiction books, this one should be one on your radar. So yeah, those are my quick thoughts on The Great Divide. Let me know down in the comments below if you read this book and what your thoughts were on it. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.